Good afternoon and welcome to Summit Live. This is episode 29 and it's called Progressive Design for Residential Spaces. It's March 2nd, 2021. My name is David Newmark. I am the president of Summit International Flooring, and to my right, as almost always, is our National Sales Director, Mark Becker. Hello, Mark, and thank you for joining us. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Bill Suk. He owns a company called Suk Design Group. I have had the pleasure of knowing Bill since 1992. So we are now 29 years friends. Yes, I'm trying not to joke around too much because we do normally kid around with each other quite a bit. Bill has done some very interesting projects in his lifetime. He's worked for numerous large corporations, one of which I met him at years ago, and we will discuss one of those projects that we did together at that time. But Bill is best known now for his high-end residential design. With that, let's welcome in Bill from New York City. Bill, are you there now?
I am here, David. Thank you so much for the introduction. And yes, David, I've known you longer than I've known my wife. So that's probably not a great thing, but no, Dave, you've been a great friend over the years, and it's been such a pleasure working with you all these years. And I just, although I am wondering what took you so long to bring me on the show.
Well, you know, the truth of the matter is we've had much more interesting people than you to bring on the first 28 episodes. It reached the point where we hit a lull in the scheduling, and Alan Smith, who's working the board today, he comes to me, he goes, "What are we going to do next week?" I said, "Don't worry, I have a standby." And I was telling one of the practices right before he was on. I couldn't wait past the first 2 minutes of the show to start on you. I love Bill. He's been a friend of mine. He's a loyal friend and a good man since 1992 when I met him. But we're going to turn this show over right now to Mark and let Mark ask you a couple questions about your business, and we'll get going.
Sure.
First thing, if you want to tell the audience anything about yourself and where you get your design inspiration, whether it's from people, from art, from nature, we'd like to learn a little bit about you. And then I have a couple questions about actual interior residential design.
Sure. And Mark, I couldn't really hear you that well, but so maybe you can turn up your microphone a little bit. But a little bit about my company. As David mentioned, I was born and raised in Michigan, and I thank Dave over there. But he's showcasing that University of Michigan helmet over there. That's for me because I went to the University of Michigan, and I'm a proud Wolverine, ranked number 2 in the country for basketball. Thank you very much. We won't talk about football at the moment. Anyway, but as soon as I was born and raised in Michigan, so as soon as I was able to, as soon as I finished college, I said, I got to get the hell out of Michigan. So I came out to New York. I said, if it's go big or go home, or go back home to Michigan. But I came to New York in 1989, worked for some large firms, and but very quickly felt that I felt that entrepreneurial spirit and felt that draw like David has over the years to start my own company. And much to David's chagrin, because when I was working for these large companies, I was doing a lot more corporate work and specifying carpet all the time. I started my own firm, and of course, like many other small architecture firms, a big part of their work is always going to be in residential design. So that's what we started doing, and I'm actually in my 25th year. So this September will be my 25th anniversary of Suk Design Group, which is, we're very proud of that, and we've had some amazing projects and clients and experiences over all those years, and we just still love doing what we do every day, and really enjoy doing residential design.
Okay.
We work together. So
you can see how well we practice this.
Yep.
And yes, Mark and I have worked together for so long. We both have a number of questions. Can I ask you something? When you and I worked together, going back into 1992, I remember the very first project, I'm not going to name it for various reasons, but it was about a 50 or 60,000 square foot project that we worked on together the project was on Long Island, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
If that's the same project that you're thinking of. And it was very different because the dynamics of working with a large firm and on a large project, is very different than working hand in hand, every day with a husband and wife on an apartment or a townhouse or something like that. So how did you adjust? I mean, what made you switch from commercial to residential? That's the first question.
Well, the first question and the reason is purely by necessity. When you're coming from a large firm with large firm backup and principals that have been in the business for decades and have those relationships with facility managers and so forth, I didn't really have that. I had some, but not at that kind of level. So by necessity, I hung my shingle. I'm like, oh, I need to make some money here, and I need to get whatever clients I could.
Yeah.
It definitely.
I was wondering, most people don't leave a safe. That person you'll call back. Most people don't leave a safe job, a paycheck, unless they have something lined up ready to go, at least to get them started. Did you have someone knocking at your door and saying, get started, I got you covered for this first project? Or you just said, that's it, I'm done, I'm starting on my own?
No, I did have one project, and it was my first project that I started my firm with. Was actually not a high-end residential job. It was designing a hair salon in Staten Island for a guy named Vinny.
Okay.
And and somehow I stumbled on this project, and it was quite the experience. It's total baptism by submersion here, but I learned a lot, and he really took a chance on me. He also got me for a really cheap price, but so to some extent, he got what he paid for. But he did take a chance on me, and that really helps to launch my firm.
Well, that's great, and of course, I think Vinny is Mark's hairdresser as well.
Yeah, he did a lousy job though. Anyway, so Bill, you've got the tenure to have seen designs change over the years, and one of the things I'm curious about, are you seeing similar designs come back in different scale from 20 and 25 years ago?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that never changes, certainly in residential design. It's traditional. I'm not when I first came out of college, I was really much like many architects coming out of school, staunch modernist. I want to build skyscrapers. I want to, design spaces that are concrete and glass and steel and so forth. This is for instance, this loft project is a very, very modern type of approach to a project. But one thing that has not changed over the years is there are still a lot of clients that like traditional design. Crown molding, traditional spaces. Like for instance, this townhouse, this is a master bathroom that we did for a townhouse on 22nd Street in Chelsea. That type of approach, design approach, has not really changed a lot. And as far as our firm is considered, the way we approach it is just that even though I wasn't a traditionalist by any means, at the same time, it's a client's house. It's not my house, it's a client's house. If they're paying me to design something for them, I want them to have what they want. And even though I didn't know too much about traditional design at first, we learned a lot about it just because I wanted to put forward something that was authentic and true.
Yeah, I had been thinking more about scale because I worked for a company a long time ago that when it was time to create new designs, we went to the library, we looked at, let's say we looked at Paisleys from 20 years ago, and we took similar Paisleys and just made them a much smaller scale and it became more current. So I was curious about that. I understand your answer completely, which leads me to wonder, when you're in these residential spaces, is technology becoming important in the, we're looking at a bathroom now. Is technology becoming important on the residential side, or do people care if faucets turn on and off without them touching it? Is that anything on the residential side to even think about?
Or is that more?
Yeah. No. I think it's very much, technology has driven a lot over the years, mostly, but in home, what we call home automation and home control. We haven't really gotten to the point of having technology turn faucets on or off, but certainly lighting and audio and video and controlling your HVAC and heating and cooling, to smart appliances. They have all come a long way as far as being able to be controlled. However, I would say that one big advance in technology or change or trend has just been, there used to be a time in the early 2000s, so forth, you heard of systems like Crestron or Savant, where people were spending some tens of thousands up to hundreds of thousands of dollars in home control, where you have this huge rack inside your house and all lit up, and you have Crestron controls everywhere. Because of the age of the iPhone and everything being more app-based, people don't feel like, we still wire up homes to, for technology, for technology, but we're not seeing a ton of, a lot of people just want to go to their app and just control the lights from the Lutron app, control their shades. They don't feel like they have to spend a ton of money these days.
Yeah, I know for a fact that I'm one of these people that could control certain things with my app, and I wouldn't want to deal with all these other things. And it just reminded me of how much I actually hated. My old home had this sink that you just have to like touch it, and it would, it would put on the water. Problem was, it had battery control, and there were like 8 little batteries in this thing below the sink, and to get to the batteries was brutal. I had to lay down on the bottom and stick my head in there like a plumber and reach to this thing. It was terrible. So I've never been a fan of that ever since that. Do you even know what I'm talking about, Bill? Do you know these little battery packs?
Yes, I do. The view I'm trying to get out of my head is you crawling underneath your sink to do that.
Yeah, but you did not. This was a completely different pose, and I promise you my shirt was tucked all the way in.
I got to wash my eyes out. Okay.
Yeah.
I love you, Dave.
I know, that's a scary thought anyway. So, Bill, listen, talk to us a little bit about that West 22nd Street townhouse. Alan had some pictures up, and he will again, but I know you won a very nice award for that design. And it's beautiful. Looks just like my home. Just saying.
Right. Someday, Dave. Someday.
Yeah,
some more carpet. This was a unique project, and it's not the biggest project that we've done, but it was certainly one of the most challenging but also one of the most rewarding. This townhouse is only 16 feet wide. So if you think about it, it's just 2 sheets of plywood lengthwise laid down next to each other. That's how wide this house is. But my clients bought this house, and we put an extension to the rear, and we put a penthouse on top. It was unique because it was at the end of a row, and so that whole western facade faced a playground park, and we were able to get approved window openings on that west facade, just right like here, which actually made a huge difference to the feeling of the inside space. Those smaller windows along the center line were actually centered on the staircase that winds up. So it was just a wonderful house, and we were able to pack in a lot of, it doesn't feel like a 16-foot wide house. And
that's from the use of light and the light color that you used?
Yes. And that master bathroom that you saw earlier, that was from that house. And the kitchen, we're very proud to say was, we entered the kitchen design, one of the largest, most recognized kitchen design competitions that's sponsored by Sub-Zero Wolf. And we submitted this and we got a regional prize, and then it got sent up to the global competition, and we ended up winning a global first prize for traditional kitchen design. So this was something we're very proud about. And, we built this house. The house was completed about 5 years ago, and it still gets a lot of press and a lot of recognition.
How many stories?
On top of that, go ahead, Dave.
I'm sorry, how many stories is that? Because this picture that we have up right now looks like it just goes on and on.
Well, to the penthouse is 5 stories above grade. So it's like a four-story townhouse, and then we added a penthouse on top. But that's what we call that an oculus stair, because you can see all the way to the top. But I think on top of all the great design accolades and how much we like it from aesthetic standpoint, we also feel very strongly about trying to deliver value to our clients, because we still realize that this is still a real estate investment, and that we want to install kind of a timeless design that, if you got to sell this thing, that you can exit and still make money on it. And actually, these clients did very well. They almost took a bet from a broker friend of theirs who said, I could sell this house for $16 million. And 6 weeks later, he did. And it was quite a healthy profit margin based on the acquisition and construction costs. I won't say how much, but it was very healthy. And it broke a record.
How long was he there? You climbed.
How long did they live there?
I thought the way I just understood that is you built that for them, and then a short while afterwards they flipped it.
Yep.
How long did they live there?
3 months.
Wow.
Well, I don't know what his profit is, but I hope you had a piece of that.
I wish I did.
Something.
I wish I did. I didn't.
There was something else I was curious about. When we work on the commercial side of the world, what's become very important, or more important, I guess, is the use of recycled materials. And I'm just curious, when you're working on the residential side, are you introducing recycled materials, or do your clients even care to ask about recycled material?
Well, it depends on the client, but we try as much as possible to do that. And we are usually introducing more green concepts, not necessarily with the materials, but in the method of construction. So extremely high efficiency air conditioning and heating systems, insulation, appliances, lighting, LED lighting, controls, so forth. We're trying to introduce in the infrastructure better ways to make their homes energy efficient. The actual use of materials, not as much, although a lot of times, like this old home, for instance, all those wood joists that came out of this house were recycled for other areas. In other houses, we've taken those wood joists, planed them, used them for shelving or for cabinetry or millwork and stuff like that. So we found some ways to adaptively reuse some of these products that were already in the house.
Now, when you're working with a space that's that narrow and you're working with a lot of windows, is sound dampening becoming a big part of your work as well?
It always is and has been. And by sound dampening, the basic way to do it is just to invest a little bit more into the windows, into their acoustic performance.
This is the moment during Summit Live where the sales director gets into shameless self-promotion. We're working with Granort cork now. The cork is recycled from the waste when they make bottles, wine stoppers.
Yep.
Very sound dampening, very green, renewable, reusable, and digitally printed these days or painted. So it's not just the look of cork. So I'm
Yep.
off the soapbox, but had to mention at least one of our products during every episode.
And you need to know that you're a day behind me because I sent to Bill's office yesterday for today delivery the Granort cork. That looks like wood because I'm going to try to convince Bill and Claudia in his office to start using it.
Well, your clients will be happy for
Nothing
sure.
like putting you on the spot like that, though, huh?
It's funny, we have been working together a long time. We think alike. So, Bill, something else, but before we get too close to the end of the show, I did want to ask you, we've been learning the last couple of weeks and we've been hearing from different designers the word form and the word shape. And you talked about that a little bit on your website. So I wanted to get your take on how you use form and shape into your projects.
Form and shape.
You know, we have a lot of younger designers, more people starting their careers that are watching our show. So perhaps they can learn something from you.
Well, let's see. Form and shape. I think it's always just going to be an exploration, and then it's always going to also be an exploration and what the clients seem to fancy. For instance, here's a building that we're designing. I haven't even shown this to my client yet, so I can't even disclose the address. But so form and shape, we're looking at two different variations of the same building, and these are all different approaches, but it's based on the same zoning, right? Because the zoning dictates the overall envelope of the building. But you can see from this building, we're using a much more rigid but chamfered vertical elements. But we also really like this scheme, which is kind of different for us. More archways, more rounded, and it's one of my designers, Andrea, did a lot of work on this, and I thought this was a fantastic approach to the facade of this building.
So you've got two options there. Did your client, I guess your client didn't tell you they had a specific idea, so you're bringing them various ideas to choose from and get a better feel for what they want?
Exactly. Sometimes our clients don't necessarily know what they want, and we just have to bring a couple different approaches just so we can gauge their reaction. And what's great about something like this is that these models were all 3D printed. So we were able we generated this on our computer, but printed them out three-dimensionally. So we were able to really bring these prototypes to life, if you will, because nothing's going to beat seeing a physical model to really get an understanding of.
I'm sorry, Dave. How long does it take to print something that size?
This is about 8 inches tall. This model took about overnight to print. So about 8, 12 hours.
Did you do that in-house, the 3D printing?
Yes. Yep.
That's fantastic.
It adds a whole new element.
It's a whole new world that we're not terribly familiar with right now. But
well, I think it just goes to the amazing amount of visualization tools that are out there and available for architects. I mean, that 3D printer is not a cheap investment, but what I tell clients, what I tell all the time is that it's cheaper to figure it out on paper, or in this case, plastic, than trying to figure out in the field when it's delaying the process or then it's an expensive change order, right? So we're trying to help our clients visualize the project as much as possible before they're actually going to build it. And I think it's just going to help. It helps us to avoid mistakes
most of the brands that we work with have configurators on the websites so that you can try different designs and turn tiles different directions to see how things will change. The technology has really come a long way. I remember years ago, to make a custom rug with one color in the center and one color border, we would mail pictures back and forth to Georgia to the mills and mail them back, and it would take weeks. And then came the fax machine, And now you do it by email. It's in 3 seconds you can design the new rug.
Yeah.
Technologies have changed. But Bill, before we end this show, I want to bring you back in time to what I worked on with you, one of the many projects I've worked on with you in the past, because I just think it's interesting, and I think who the people that are watching this show would appreciate it. The USS Intrepid is docked on the west side on the Hudson River, somewhere around 40 maybe 2nd Street. I worked on this project with you. I had the pleasure of carpeting the hangar deck, and if you don't know what that is, let me just tell you, it's below the very. I mean, I don't know the proper terminology, but it's in the middle of the ship. It's very large. It's steel. There's a tremendous amount of rivets, and we had to get that done. And I was very impressed by the work that you did to alter a battleship, not just with interior finishes, but as you can see with this picture, staircase and this deck outside. So tell us just a little bit, if you would, about the project.
Well, we were honored to have been. We were the architects for the Intrepid for probably about a 7-year period, and we oversaw about $20 million worth of capital projects over those years, including this education center, which is on the back end of the ship, the visitor center, the theater on there, and even things as mundane as a heater boiler, a boiler chiller plant on the pier. We aided in the flight deck restoration. It's an incredible place, and we were so happy to have been a part of it. There was a time when the flight deck was just was not watertight. It was leaking like crazy all the time, and the Intrepid held events on board the ship to raise money. They've had guests of honor such as Ronald Reagan, Colin Powell, Margaret Thatcher, Yitzhak Rabin, George Bush, so forth and so on, Bill Clinton. And this flight deck just leaked water all the time. And the hangar deck that Dave was talking about was made of steel, and it was slippery. It would get rusted out and so forth. So, and very loud when you have a ton of kids in there. So we needed the museum at the time wanted to carpet the entire hangar deck, and the only guy I thought of was Dave Newmark to do this project, because I knew he would be the only sucker.
We learned about his acumen in plumbing already. Under the sink.
Okay, yeah. He knows that.
Dave's a patriot. Dave's a patriot, and and he just really came through. He had the technical knowledge to try and deal with a very difficult substrate. You can't just like put plywood on this steel deck. There were a lot of things that you just really had to work around, and we were on a very tight schedule and a very tight budget. And Dave really pulled through. It was great.
And thank you very much for those words, Bill. And quite honestly, it was a pleasure working with you on that, as always, and on that project. And one of the nice perks I had is I was able to go to the Intrepid anytime I wanted for free with my kids, and I did take advantage of that. Both Jeffrey and Matthew had been to the Intrepid. I would venture to say 4 or 5 times a piece with me.
Nice.
For no reason at all, just something to do.
Well, if people visit New York, they should definitely check it out. I've taken my son when he was younger. It's a really cool thing to see.
All right, so Bill, listen, I could sit and chat with you all day, every day. I have the best times with you. I love you. I love you to tears. I love you forever. You're a good man. You're a great architect, a great friend. I thank you for your time. I'll be talking to you soon, and I want you to go blue forever.
Go blue. Thanks, Dave.
Bill, thank you. So that was Bill Suk from Suk Design Group. If you couldn't tell, I've been friends with Bill for a long, long time. He's a great man, great person, great architect. Next week, we have Ridimar Brar from Arterior in LA. She will be on next week. She's going to talk about reinvention of interior space. I will not be hosting next week. It'll be Mark Becker and Alan Smith together for next week's show. If you should have any questions that you'd like answered or like us to discuss any particular topics, please feel free to email us at info@summit-flooring.com, or if you'd like to speak with me or Mark, 1-800-496-3566. That's our toll-free number. You can call us. We will listen. We may not listen to what you have to say, but we'll pretend to listen. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us for this March 2nd edition of Summit Live. We'll look for you next week. Thank you.